Hello, and welcome back to Spacer Laces. I'm your host, Jeff Meyer. We're going to do a quick hitter right now, a little light 'em up segment. It's Penn State Hate Week, Pitt versus Penn State, but honestly, every week's Penn State Hate Week. But I'm really excited for the game this weekend. I will be in attendance, got great tickets to the game, super excited. It's a primetime game, Pitt versus Penn State at Heinz Field, night game. Should be fun, should be eventful, especially last week after Penn State almost dropping to Appalachian State opening weekend. I think it was 11 years to the day that unfortunately Appalachian State went to the big house and knocked off Michigan back when Chad Henne and Mike Hart and Mario Manningham and I think it was Steve Bresson was there. That was rough. That was back in 2006 or 11 years ago. I don't really remember. Pretty sure it was around that time frame, but Penn State at home at Happy Valley, opening weekend, almost lose to Appalachian State. Appalachian State took Penn State to overtime, so I'm super excited for this weekend. Should be fun, should be eventful. Hopefully Kenny Pickett and the Pitt offense can put enough points to hopefully pull off an upset against Penn State at home. Oh, sorry, I'm excited. I'm just really, really excited for this weekend. But the whole light 'em up segment I want to get into today, I was just thinking about it. Comparing position to position, best Pitt players versus the best Penn State players of all time. When you look at position, when you compare position to position, it's honestly a landslide. It's got some Hall of Fame caliber players, Penn State not so much. So I want to dive right into quarterback. Most important position on the field is comparing Pitt's best all-time quarterback versus Penn State's all-time leading quarterback. Hands down for University of Pittsburgh, obviously, it's Dan Marino. Everyone knows Dan. I refer to him as Dan. Great guy, yeah. But getting into it, so Dan Marino obviously played at Pitt from 1979 to 1982. He was drafted in the 1983 draft, which is one of the most famous quarterback drafts out there. It's the draft that they did, the documentary ESPN did, the 30 for 30, Elway to Marino. There was 5 top quarterbacks taken in that first round draft. One, which was Todd, I think it's Blackledge, you say his last name. Didn't pan out in the NFL, which most Penn State players don't. But unfortunately, Todd Blackledge wasn't the best Penn State quarterback that I had in mind. Actually, after doing some research, I decided Kerry Collins was the best Penn State quarterback, the best quarterback they've ever had. It was funny though, I saw a couple websites, which I'm sure recency biased, honestly probably not legit websites, had Trace McSorley, the Penn State's quarterback, the current quarterback of Penn State's team, on that list as being the best quarterback ever. Don't think that's true, don't think that's realistic, so we're going with Kerry Collins. Kerry Collins played at Penn State from 1991 to 1994. He was drafted in the first round as well, drafted in 95. He was in the 95 draft, the 5th pick overall. Going into his NFL career, I have his career touchdown to picks are 208 to 176, 40,000 yards, a 73.8 passer rating. He was in the NFL for 17 years, was a journeyman, was a Panther at one point, Titan, Giant, all over the place. Had a long, successful career. I think he made 2 Pro Bowls. Looking at his college career, looked like in college he was 21-5. 5,300 yards, 29 touchdowns, 21 picks. Like I said, good quarterback overall. Had a good college career, a healthy, long NFL career. But Kerry Collins doesn't stack up to Dan Marino. When you look at his career, I'm going to go through some of his career numbers. One of the ones I wasn't really impressed with, Dan Marino, he had 4,967 completions to his 8,350 attempts in the NFL, which is an kind of unimpressive 59.4% completion percentage in the NFL, which when you look at quarterbacks nowadays, your Peyton Mannings, Tom Brady, Drew Brees, those Aaron Rodgers, the top quarterbacks, it's kind of a low career completion percentage. But then you got to consider he played in the 80s. He was him and Elway and a couple other quarterbacks during that time frame were really revolutionary in the game. Joe Montana, those kind of guys really changed the game into the pass-friendly game that is today. They were kind of the first ones to transition, help the NFL transition to what it is today. But just looking at some of his other statistics there, he had the 420 career touchdown passes, the 252 picks. For a long time, that was the record in the NFL, career touchdown passes. I know you look at the career list now, I'm pretty sure Drew Brees is behind him. The first one to really break it, I believe, was Brett Favre, who had the record for a while. But I'm pretty sure the record is right now held by Peyton Manning, which Tom Brady and Drew Brees are probably quickly approaching Brett Favre and Peyton Manning. I'm not sure exactly where they all sit, but I'm pretty sure they're above the historic 420, which stood for many years as the all-time leading touchdown record in the NFL by the Pitt Panther, Dan Marino. He did end his career with 61,361 passing yards, a passing rating of 86.4, which is also super impressive. 61,000 yards, which I think is kind of interesting. Kerry Collins, 17-year career, had the 40,000. 40,000 pretty good, but good old Dan put up 61K with his 420 passing touchdowns. But so when you compare the two, and also a few things here looking at the college career of Dan Marino, he had the Pitt, I guess it was the most winning span in a 3-year mark for any Pitt Panther ever. Dan Marino's first 3 years at Pitt went 33-3. He had 74 touchdowns, 64 picks, and I think in the 3-year span, I think I saw somewhere he had 7,900 passing yards. I think he ended his career maybe 80, somewhere in the 8,000s, maybe 9,000s. Didn't really get to lock that stat down, but what made him drop to the 27th pick in that first round of the 83 draft was his 9-3 senior year, which he ended 42-6 at Pitt. I mean, that's a hell of a career in college. But he also had some off-the-field issues. I know it's like Pitt folklore or whatever, kind of one of those things. He had, some drug problems. He was a Pitt native there, went to Pitt, born and bred, and he was on the party scene at Pitt. So that's why between his 9-3 season, his senior season, and some off-the-field issues, some rumors about drug use and that, dropped him in the first round. But Don Shula took a risk with Dan Marino, and it sure did pay off. I mean, Dan Marino, Hall of Famer. So when you compare a Hall of Famer, the Pitt's best and the best quarterback ever at Pitt, to Kerry Collins, probably the best quarterback ever at Penn State, it's not really comparable. I mean, Kerry Collins, great career, journeyman. I know he had some off-the-field issues as well, some off-color things he did. Don't really want to get too much into. I know he has... He had a problem with alcoholism for a while there too, which kind of, I don't want to say derailed his NFL career, but also, clearly didn't help it. But yeah, both the guys had some off-the-field issues throughout their career. Dan in college, Dan Marino in college, and Kerry Collins, the mid part of his NFL career there. But I know Dan Marino, what he did on and off the field in the NFL kind of overshadowed some of those adolescent, younger, I don't want to say adolescent, but, teenage problems he had there probably at Pitt, and young adult problems. But, both great quarterbacks, but when you compare them quarterback to quarterback, university to university, Pitt usually wins, and unfortunately Penn State just can't really stack up. I know tomorrow I'm going to get into the running backs. I'm going to try to get at least quarterbacks, running backs, and receivers, compare the best all-time at their respective positions. But starting off with quarterbacks, Pitt, got to get in the check mark in that category. When you compare the best quarterbacks ever between Pitt, Penn State, hands down, Dan Marino over Kerry Collins. Not really competition there. I mean, Dan Marino, the Hall of Fame career, really helped change the game for the NFL. Had the most winningest 3-year span at Pitt ever, 33-3. Was ranked in the top 5 all 3 seasons. Defeated multiple, I think, top 10 opponents. I was seeing, looking up some of the research there. But yeah, Dan Marino over Kerry Collins. Pitt, mark it off, better quarterback all the time, and hopefully they can get the win this weekend. We're going to be talking more in the next couple of days leading up to the game. I'm going to try to do some pregame stuff also on Saturday, but very excited. Pitt, Penn State, Appalachian State. Before last weekend, didn't really think Pitt had much of a chance against Penn State, but watching last week's game, Appalachian State could put up 38 in regulation against Penn State. why not Pitt? But I'm very excited for the upcoming game. I hope you guys enjoyed this little light 'em up segment comparing the best quarterbacks ever at Pitt, Penn State. Dan Marino, clearly better than Kerry Collins. Hope you guys enjoy some of the stuff that Southbound Sports and what Spaces or Laces are going to be doing for the upcoming Pitt-Penn State matchup. All right, thank you. Over and out.